What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my official 2024 college football playoff predictions for the upcoming 2024/2025 college football season. Of course, the 12-team playoff era now begins. The 14 playoff era is now over, so now we got 12 teams, of course, now battling for a national championship. So hopefully you guys are very excited for the season to start next weekend, but also very excited for the 12-team playoff era. It's going to be really fun to do these kind of playoff videos week by week, so let's go ahead and get right into it. But again, I wanted to mention, if you don't know how the playoff committee works and everything, and also the playoff format, the top four conference champions, of course, do get a bye in the first round of the playoffs, before playing in the quarterfinals. The opening round games will be held on campuses for the universities and everything, so that means the home field advantage will go to the higher seed, and then of course you got one group of 5 champion coming over from a group of 5 conference. That'll be the number 12 seed. So, and then you also got those at-large teams from 5 through 11, and some of these predictions that you're going to see on here, I don't really feel confident with some of them. Maybe some of them I do feel confident with, but a couple of them I don't really feel confident with. So let's go ahead and get into my playoff predictions, and also these are going to be based off of my predictions here for all the Power 4 teams and also for the Power 4 conferences and everything. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Here is the bracket here for the college football playoff, for the 12-team playoff for 2024. So we'll go from number 1 to number 12. We'll start here with my number 1 seed. At number 1, I got the Georgia Bulldogs. I think this team goes undefeated and also wins the SEC championship. So I think they'll be that higher I think they'll be that high seed here in the playoff rankings. And because of their undefeated record, I think they get the number 1 seed here in the playoffs. So I got the Georgia Bulldogs getting the number 1 seed. Again, I got them winning the SEC championship against Texas. You look at this roster. Of course, you got Carson Beck, of course, returning at quarterback. You look at the defense, a lot of talent there on that side of the football, and overall just no weaknesses here for this Georgia team. And also, they kind of been my pick to win the national championship as well. I won't really spoil it here, though, for you. But again, this is a very dangerous team, and it seems like when Georgia plays in like lesser competition, it seems like they don't play their best game, but once they get into like big kind of games, they always play pretty well, and I think that's going to really bode well for Georgia this year, even though they have a very tough schedule with very tough road games on that schedule. So we'll see how it works out. I just don't really see Georgia losing like 3 games, though. A lot of people have been predicting them to lose 3 games this year. I don't really see that happening, though. At best, they can probably just lose 1 or 2 games. So I got Georgia here at number 1. Let's now go to my number 2 seed. So this is Ohio State. So I got Ohio State here at number 2. I got them winning the Big Ten championship, of course. I got them beating Oregon in that rematch from the regular season. That's their 1 regular season loss, of course. But I think the Buckeyes sneak in here and get the number 2 seed as the second highest, ranked group of 5, or, not the group of 5, the Power 4 champion, in my opinion. Again, you look at this roster, Ohio State, I think, will be better by this time. Once they lose to Oregon, they'll definitely be on a run and get revenge on that Oregon team in the Big Ten championship. Chip Kelly, of course, takes over at offensive coordinator. Again, this is a very talented roster, just like Georgia is. No really big weaknesses here for this team. So Ohio State comes in here as the second highest Power 4 champion here in my top 4. Let's go to my number 3 seed now, and that's going to be the Florida State Seminoles. I got them winning the ACC championship, of course, against Louisville. I just did that video, of course, from yesterday. Florida State, of course, knows how to, recruit in the transfer portal. I mean, obviously, that's really been the strength of this program now for the last couple years. Of course, they had a chance to make the playoff last year in the last 14 playoff era. Of course, that's now officially over. So if they win the ACC championship, they're going to, get in regardless. And the ACC was very tough to predict this year. I will admit, I had a really hard time predicting that conference and everything. You had some other teams that really could challenge Florida State, but Florida State's schedule is not all that horrible. Their 2 losses, though, come in the conference. One of them comes in the conference against Clemson, and then the other one comes, of course, against, Notre Dame in the non-conference. So that's the reason why Florida State is just predicted to go 10-2 instead of 11-1. I can definitely see them going 11-1 in my opinion. If they didn't have to play Notre Dame on the road, I think that would definitely, put them at 11-1. And also, they didn't have to play Clemson, or actually not Clemson. I have them losing a road game to Miami. If they didn't have to play Miami on the road, they can probably go undefeated, even though that's a winnable game. But Florida State comes in here at number 3 as my ACC champion, and also the third highest ranked, according to my predictions, in the Power 4 champions here in the top 4. So my number 4 seed is obviously going to be the Oklahoma State Cowboys, my Big 12 champion here for 2024. I think this team gets the number 4 seed. I mean, it's really a tight race there between the ACC and for the number 3 spot, and then also for the Big 12 championship spot as well. I think it's really going to be based off of records, though, to be honest, and maybe better resumes as well. But Florida State, I think, maybe is a little bit of a slightly better team than Oklahoma State, but I think Oklahoma State also has a lot of talent on their roster. But, if I was going to pick on a neutral field, I probably would definitely pick Florida State. That's a very tight matchup. But again, number 3 and number 4 was very tight here. Again, it really came down to records and everything. I think Florida State definitely has a better record than, also Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State gets the number 4 seed here. A lot of talent on this roster. You got Ollie Gordon, of course, returning at running back. One of the top running backs maybe coming up in the Big 12 and also in the country. And they also got a veteran quarterback in Alan Bowman. It's 7th year, of course, this year. And I think this Oklahoma State team makes it to the college football playoff. I got them beating K-State in the, Big 12 championship and everything, so that is how the number 4 seed for Oklahoma State got in here to the college football playoff. So those are my top 4 conference championship, conference champions here. Again, they get a first round bye and everything. So now let's go to the at-large teams from 5 through 11. We'll start here with my number 5 seed, and that's going to be the Texas Longhorns. I got Texas losing one regular season game to Georgia, and then also the second loss comes to Georgia in the SEC Championship. I think Texas might have a chance to win the SEC this year and get that number 1 spot in the playoff and everything, but again, I just think Georgia's a more talented team than Texas is. Again, it's really tight. All the Power 4 conferences are pretty tight. Again, when you have all these newcomers coming over from the Pac-12 and some of them coming over from like different conferences as well. So again, Texas here at number 5, I think they are going to be that runner-up, and also that number 1 runner-up from coming over from the conference championship, and also be that number 1 at-large team as well. So I got Texas here at number 5. Let's now go to number 6. I got the Oregon Ducks here at number 6. So again, I got this team losing the conference championship game to Ohio State. I have them losing one game in the regular season to Wisconsin, but I can definitely see Oregon going undefeated. It wouldn't really shock me if Oregon did go 12-0. They do got Ohio State this year at home, but they got to play Michigan on the road. Maybe that could be one of those losses there for Oregon in the regular season, because that game, I believe, is in the month of November. But I think Oregon is definitely a more talented team than Michigan is. So with that being said, I think Oregon definitely gets the second at-large, right here at number 6. So let's now move on to number 7. I don't really feel confident with this prediction. Like I mentioned earlier, a couple of, seeds on here I don't really feel confident with. So let's go to my number 7 seed, and that's actually going to be the LSU Tigers. So LSU, you probably will be surprised by this pick, but again, I got LSU getting in here to the college football playoff. I got this team going 10-2 in the regular season. I think they find a way to sneak in there as a 10-2 team, and their schedule really isn't all that horrible. Yes, they play Alabama on the schedule every year, and they also got to play Ole Miss, but I got LSU beating Ole Miss in the regular season matchup because they get Alabama and Ole Miss both at home. So that's the reason why you're seeing LSU here in the college football playoff. Again, I think they sneak in here and also get in here as a number 7 seed. So again, I don't really feel confident with this prediction that LSU will be the number 7 seed. I think that will definitely be like a big, mistake on that prediction, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Again, we have to stick to our predictions here for, based off of my, predictions for all the teams in the Power 4. So I got LSU here at number 7. Moving on to number 8, I just talked about them, and that's the Ole Miss Rebels. I got Ole Miss sneaking in here to the playoff as a 10-2 team. So yes, I have this Ole Miss team going 10-2 in the regular season. I do have them losing to Georgia and LSU in the regular season matchup. So that's really what the tiebreaker came down to between Ole Miss and LSU. Again, Ole Miss has to go on the road in Death Valley to play LSU, and that was a very tough matchup to call. So with that being said, I chose LSU in that matchup and everything. So I got Ole Miss getting the number 8 seed, and also the number 9 seed. I'm going to go with Tennessee here. This is another team that I don't really feel confident that will sneak into the playoff, in my opinion. Maybe I don't really feel as confident with this prediction now. Like I said, I made a couple of, predictions here, and some of them I don't really feel confident with. Maybe I don't really feel confident with this prediction as well. But Tennessee has a schedule that really sets up nicely for them. I have them sneaking in here as a 10-2 team as well. They don't have a really tough schedule, even though they got to play Georgia, Florida, and also some of those top teams in the SEC this year. But they get Alabama and Florida both at home, and then they get Georgia on the road, which I have them losing that game. And then I also got them losing to Oklahoma as well on the road. Yes, they have a very tough road, schedule with Georgia and Oklahoma, but those are the only two tough road games on that schedule for Tennessee. So again, that's how Tennessee snuck in here to the playoff, just because of their schedule and also because of their record as well. So Tennessee here at number 9. Let's now go on to number 10. My number 10 seed is going to be the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, an independent team. I think Notre Dame sneaks in here to the playoff based off of their record and also based off of the ACC schedule and everything, because I do have them playing, I do have them beating Florida State in that regular season matchup. So maybe that's how they could probably sneak into the playoff this year, is because of that win over Florida State. But again, it's also because of their record. I have them going 10-2 as well. I have a bunch of 10-2 teams that are sneaking in here to the playoff. Again, Notre Dame, I think, is going to be a really good team this year. A lot of talent on this roster, and a lot of people are saying that Notre Dame's going to be a top 10 team. So that's the reason why you're seeing them here in the college football playoff. All right, let's go to my number 11 seed, and this was definitely not what I was really confident with going into these college football playoff predictions. Choosing my number 11 seed, obviously we had to sneak in a 9-3 team type team in here, and this team is going to be the Michigan Wolverines. And again, I don't really feel confident with this pick. I had a lot of other 9-3 teams that could have snuck in here. I had Alabama, even though they had a 5-3 conference record, I probably could have put them in here. And then also Penn State out of the Big Ten, and also had several Big 12 teams. Kansas State, even though they lose the Big 12 championship, but their record probably would be 9-4. And then I also had Utah and Kansas in here as well out of the Big 12, and then of course out of the ACC I had Miami, North Carolina, and then also Louisville as well, even though Louisville loses the ACC championship. So yeah, a lot of teams that I probably could have put in here at number 11, but I'm going to go with Michigan here just because of their conference record, and they also are that top 9-3 team according to my prediction. So I got Michigan here as my number 11 seed. And then we move on to number 12, the one group of 5 champion, of course. I mean, obviously you have to choose a group of 5 team here when it comes to the number 12 seed, and I'm going to go with a safe pick here. They come out of the Mountain West. I'm going to go with Boise State here at number 12. This is one of the top programs in the Mountain West Conference. I'm going to go with the safe pick there and choose Boise State. So I got them as my group of 5 champion. Again, I don't really study the group of 5 that much, so that's the reason why I'm going to go with Boise State, just because they're a famous name and everything. So these are my top 12 teams heading into the college football playoff for 2024. And like I said, a couple of these, maybe even Tennessee, I don't really feel as confident with it. LSU, I don't really feel as confident with that pick, but I definitely don't really feel confident with Michigan there at number 11. But it is what it is, so let's make predictions now here if these playoff games were to happen tomorrow. We start here with the number 9 versus number 8 seeded matchup. It's Ole Miss versus Tennessee. You got two very explosive offensive teams here going at it. I mean, obviously, two very explosive offenses that have really owned college football on the offensive side of the football now for the last 3 years. Tennessee, of course, they're going to go hurry up tempo on the offensive side of the football. I mean, obviously, they can try to wear down that Ole Miss defense, but Ole Miss is definitely going to try to, wear down the Tennessee defense as well. So this might be a shootout. I think home field advantage might be the difference. And remember, first round games, they're going to be at campuses, so that means Ole Miss will get home field advantage, and I think that will definitely be the difference. And it's a close game, it's a shootout, but I'm going to go with Ole Miss here to get the win. So I got the Rebels moving on to the quarterfinals, where they'll meet Georgia as the number 1 seed, and then after that we got Texas versus Boise State here in the number 5 versus number 12 matchup. I think this is a pretty bad matchup here for Boise State. Don't really expect them to compete in this game. Texas, though, I think is way too dangerous. Maybe it's a close game for a little while. Maybe they give Texas a scare a little bit, but this game will be in Austin because of that first round game, and I think Texas gets the win. So I got Texas beating Boise State here in the first round, and that will put them into the second round there with Oklahoma State in the quarterfinals. So I got Texas moving on here to the quarterfinals. Next, we got LSU versus Notre Dame, and what an interesting storyline this would be if LSU and Notre Dame went at it. It's not really just about the rosters, it's about the coaching. LSU, of course, Brian Kelly going up against his former team and everything. And like I said, LSU is a team that I think is going to be really good this year. I don't think they're definitely going to drop off from where they were last season, but I am concerned a little bit about the quarterback position. And then also the offense might not be the same either, so you never know about LSU. But I think their defense will keep this thing really close, but I think Notre Dame has a little bit of a slightly better offense, and then also Notre Dame has LSU's old offensive coordinator, so that'll be very interesting as well. So with that being said, I think Notre Dame has a slight advantage in this one, even though LSU has the home field advantage. I'm going to go with the Fighting Irish, though, to pull off the upset. So I got Notre Dame moving on to the quarterfinals. And then after that, we got Oregon versus Michigan, the 6 versus 11 seeded matchup. These two teams, of course, meet in the regular season. This game will be in Ann Arbor in the regular season, but this time it will be in Oregon if these two teams meet. And with that being said, I think Oregon definitely playing at home is definitely the better team here, and also I think talent-wise Oregon might be the better team here as well. So I'm going to go with the Ducks there to move on to the second round. All right, let's make quarterfinal predictions now. In the second round, we got Georgia versus Ole Miss. Of course, maybe a rematch here from the regular season. I still don't think Ole Miss is on Georgia's level. I don't know why people are picking Ole Miss to beat Georgia in the regular season. Again, I think Ole Miss is going to be a lot better this year on the defensive side of the football, but I don't think it will be enough to go up against the Georgia offense. And I think Georgia clearly is the dominant team here. It's close, maybe by the fourth quarter, but I'm going to go with Georgia to pull away late in that fourth quarter. So I got Georgia moving on to the semifinals. Then we got Texas versus Oklahoma State here in the number 5 versus number 4 matchup in the quarterfinal. Of course, two former Big 12 teams that met in the Big 12 championship last year. I think Texas definitely is the better team here. Oklahoma State's going to have a talented roster and everything, but I don't think it will be enough. I think Texas definitely clearly is the better team. It's a close game. Oklahoma State will fight in this one to try to get revenge on Texas from last year. But I think Texas definitely wins this one. They're definitely the better team, so I'm going to go with Texas there to move on to the semifinals. Then we got Notre Dame versus Ohio State. A rematch, of course, from the regular season from last year. A lot of rematch here in the playoff. Again, this is what makes the 12-team playoff so fun, because you could have rematches, maybe for the second time, and then also maybe for the third time as well. But back to Ohio State and Notre Dame here. I think Ohio State is definitely the better team here. Both of these teams are very talented on the rosters and everything, but Ohio State definitely is a little bit better than Notre Dame. And I also think the Buckeyes are definitely going to be more dominant than Notre Dame this year as well. So I got Ohio State getting the win there against the Fighting Irish in the second round, and also moving on to the semifinals. Then we got Florida State versus Oregon, the number 3 versus number 6 seeded matchup. The first time that these two teams will go at it probably since 10 years ago in the first ever 4-team playoff game. Oregon really dominated that game. I don't really expect the same outcome like it was 10 years ago. Again, that was a really long time ago. So I think Oregon, though, I think they're definitely the better team here. Again, Florida State's a very talented team as well, but I just don't think Florida State's going to have a roster that really could compete here against this Oregon team. And also, Dylan Gabriel has a lot of experience. I do trust him a little bit more than DJ Oagale. So with that being said, I think Oregon gets the upset here in the second round. So that brings us to the semifinals, and interestingly enough, the 4 teams that I have going into the conference championship, Georgia versus Texas, this will be a rematch for the third time, and then we got Ohio State versus Oregon also for the third time. So we start with Georgia versus Texas here, and like I said, Georgia's probably been my pick to go to the national championship ever since the month of January. Again, I'm really high on this Georgia team, and I think just because of the talent and everything, again, they're definitely a more better team than Texas is, and I think also the defense is going to be an advantage for Georgia as well. Even though Texas might have a better offense than Georgia, but I think Texas does come up short in this one. It's a close game like it has been in the first 2 games, but I'm gonna go with Georgia here to get the win. So I got Georgia moving on to the national championship. Then we got Ohio State versus Oregon in this one. This is a pretty tough one to call. Both of these teams are pretty even in the Big Ten. This will be a third time matchup here between these two teams. The series is tied, of course, because I got Oregon, of course, beating Ohio State in the regular season, and then I got the Buckeyes beating the Ducks in the conference championship game. It is another close one, but I'm actually going to go with Ohio State here because I think Ohio State, when it comes to these postseason games, they might have a little advantage as well. Again, the Buckeyes will be fired up for this one. They know Oregon's going to get revenge on them, and Oregon's going to do everything they can to get revenge on Ohio State, but it won't be enough. I'm going to go with the Buckeyes here to advance to the national championship. And speaking of the national championship, we got Georgia versus Ohio State here in the final national championship game. Both of these teams, I think, are pretty even in talent-wise and, roster-wise as well. Georgia, though, like I said, they've been my pick ever since the preseason to win the national championship, and I'm still going to go with that pick here. Again, I know a lot of people saying that Georgia's not going to win it all this year, just of how tough the SEC is going to get, and also how tough the playoff is going to get as well. But again, when it comes to these postseason games, Georgia really steps up their game, and they obviously play their best game up to date. So with that being said, I think Georgia beats Ohio State here in a close one. It's kind of like similar to the game like a couple years ago in the playoff semifinal. It really goes either way. It comes down to the wire between really two good offensive teams. But I'm going to go with Georgia here to win the national championship, and that's my national championship pick. And also, those are my 2024-25 college football playoff predictions for the upcoming 2024 season. So let me guys know what you think about these playoff predictions. Give me your playoff predictions down in the comments below. And who's ready for the 12-team playoff and also for the season next week. Coming up next Monday, we'll have my preseason top 25, so stay tuned for that video. And thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.